Our next speaker for today, we have Mitch Ashley, CEO from ASG. He serves as CEO and Managing Analyst of Accelerated Strategies Group, where he leads a team of prominent experts in digital transformation, DevOps, cloud native, and cybersecurity. In this role, Mitch works with companies to align digital transformation and technology strategies to achieve disruptive goals and high impact results. He is in high demand as a speaker at conferences the world over, and his popular DevOps Chats podcast, Engaging with Digital Leaders, is one of the most widely followed in the field. His topic for today is What is DevOps 2021 and beyond?
Hi, and welcome. Thank you for attending this session today. I hope that you're having a great time participating in the DevOps India Summit. It's my first chance to talk at one of these, and I'm very pleased and honored to be asked and honored that you've joined me today. So we're going to be talking about the future of DevOps. It's something that I do a fair bit of speaking about, especially right now. There's a lot of interest in kind of all this upheaval and change and what's occurred, and how does that sort of set us up for our future. My name is Mitch Ashley. I'm CEO and Managing Analyst at Accelerated Strategies Group. This is an analyst firm that I run that focuses on cloud native, focuses on DevOps, cybersecurity, digital transformation, things that are basically fall into my background. And I work with a great group of analysts, very talented analysts, many of which, like myself, have both been practitioners, developed products, run businesses, things like that. So I hope I can say I come by this honestly. The reason why I like talking about this is there's a whole spectrum of where people are in their DevOps journey. There's many people who are still just beginning and kind of figuring out, going into CI/CD, sort of CI, maybe even as the starting point of where they're thinking about tooling and things like that. But I think it's important to recognize that, for me at least, DevOps is not a tool. It's not a product. It's not even a suite of tools. It's a way of creating software that's fundamentally different than how I learned to create software earlier in my career. So it's just a little bit about my own DevOps journey. I was running IT for an organization doing research in the telecommunications space. And we really needed to make a transformation because we were doing much more software development across many research teams and project teams, as well as what we needed to do in IT. And then a friend of mine, Alan Schimmel, who you may know, he's the editor-in-chief of Media Ops, sites like DevOps.com and Security Boulevard, Container Journal. He's a longtime friend of mine. We've done several businesses together. He and I were chatting. He said, Mitch, you need to go check out this DevOps and tell me what you think. It's something that I'm really interested and want to get into. Now, this is, early 2000, probably 12 or so, somewhere in that range, which is when I really got started in it. And where I ended up going with it, I did some research and trying to find out and followed along, and eventually came across Gene Kim's book. And so my IT team, did kind of a book club. So let's read this and see what we get from it. And from that started us down this path of, first of all, how do we not have a Brent in our team? But also, how do we really think about what's happening in the software world? And there were other convergences things that were converging at the same time. I was an early user of AWS back in the kind of late 2000s. And started to really see, the cloud is more than just somebody else's computer. Frankly, people who said that, I realized, hadn't gotten into it far enough to realize that while that may be true, the sort of like, driving a race car and driving your bicycle provide you transportation. I'm not saying that they're that good or bad, but you can do different things, and sometimes that's now required. You transform how you work. And to me, that's what's happened. We've had this convergence, and I experienced that myself because we moved our IT organization fully to the cloud, whether it's SaaS services and to hosting centers like AWS. And I ran a business that had a SaaS service, did about 90 million transactions a year on that service. So it's I've been in this process myself, and in that time, both as an IT leader, but also a product leader, but also running a company that provided software and SaaS services as well as other things. So it's been interesting for me, and I don't claim to be a thought leader in the space, an earlier creator of DevOps and that kind of thing. That falls to the experts, the John Willises and Jane Grolls and others, Jeb and other folks that were fundamental in that. I was really a practitioner of it, and kind of defining it from what does it mean to do it, and that's sort of my MO. I really enjoy applying technology and learning from it that way. So why does that inform us where we are? Well, I think it's always good to sort of start with understanding where you are on the spectrum. You might be a greenfield kind of application where you really can kind of have an open field of how you implement DevOps and tooling and all the processes and Agile and things like that. Maybe you're even a startup company that really is greenfield, or you're within an organization and you're kind of doing your own thing outside of the normal software creation process. Some people refer to those greenfields as unicorns that sort of deploy software many times a day, sometimes many times an hour. For most of us, that's probably not even a requirement, at least not right now. And then I think most of us are in a different place where we have an existing infrastructure, an existing way of creating software that we're transforming, to use that overused term. And that's well, it's the same idea. You're dealing with workflows and tool chains and pipelines and all of that, and automation, of course. It makes a big difference where you're starting from, because now you're changing the momentum of what you're doing, and then you're trying to scale that. And that's oftentimes where people run into challenge with DevOps. Not that it's anything about DevOps. It's relatively easy, if I can say that, compared to trying to scale it across a very large organization, a large enterprise. That's where the real challenges come from. So I think many of us are somewhere in that journey. Some of us have been practitioners of it for some time. But I think one of the things that we have to step back and say was why? Why would we do DevOps? Why is this important to us? Because that also informs why it's important to us in the future. And we were in this process of moving to a digital world, kind of fully digital experiences for ourselves as employees, customers, for the business markets that we go into, relying on mobile apps for experiences with customers as well as online. It's maybe a combination of in-person experiences or hybrid, putting automated panels or information panels for ordering food in restaurants, and really changing the experience for customers. I remember before the pandemic, even Starbucks was beginning to transform their coffee shops, if I can call it that, to be really a center where you'll pick stuff up, you order it digitally, whether it's on your phone or on a pad there, a tablet, in a much different experience. And of course, enter in COVID in the last 18 months, relatively speaking. And, and speaking of not speaking about the tragedy, of course, of it, if I can, the human tragedy side of that, as well as the economic impact, is something that's effective of all of us. And part of it is, if you've looked at any data, and we do this as an analyst organization, study these very closely, that organizations really ramped up their move to the cloud. Right? If not now, when? Let's just get there. And they made decisions about collaboration tools, and let's get on Microsoft Teams or Slack instead of some executive said, how come it takes us 2 years to decide anything else, and you could decide that in a week to which tool we're going to use for collaboration? Well, necessity drives that sometimes. So a lot of things changed. Now, it wasn't just the tool and it wasn't just the technology. What also changed is that the business conditions, of course, the economic conditions changed. Supply chains were disrupted, sometimes obliterated, which is, and always in any economic downturn, is one of the biggest challenges to building back. And you can see that today in all the shortages that we might have in supply chains, whether it's lumber to build houses or put a deck on your backyard, and suddenly it's, twice or more expensive to the food products that we have in grocery stores, and why the prices are going up so much. It's the shortage. It's the supply and demand issue. So those supply chains take a while to be rebuilt, but they oftentimes get rebuilt in a much different way, both because suppliers are no longer there, they've changed their business model, or it's time to rethink it. Cisco did that back in the 2008 downturn, where they took a very different approach to their manufacturing suppliers, and it's a good opportunity to do that for them to set themselves up for the next decade plus. A lot of investment goes into R&D during downturns and things like that. But I think what's unique about our experience from the last, from the COVID era, if we want to call it the COVID era, is that it changed us in how we think about our experience and how we're going to deliver our goods and services, and the responsiveness of the business and the requirements to be not just competitive, but be agile and nimble. I mean, it may be hard for some businesses to talk about that, to get the whole organization that way. But what's changed is that software is now at the center of that. Nearly every business strategy has software, or maybe even technology broader than just software, thinking about devices and IoT or delivery platforms in addition to software, that is central to their strategy. Almost no business can operate without it these days. But it's more than a back office function. It is the delivery mode. It is an enabler for business strategies, and will continue to be even more so into the future. It's what's differentiated and helped create markets like Uber and being able to rent somebody's house to go to the Olympics instead of staying at a hotel. Lots of things that have changed about how businesses can both disrupt others, competitors, as well as disrupt their own business and remake that kind of leapfrog from where they are into the next place they need to be or they want to be from that standpoint. So people in the boardroom, people in the executive suite, C-suite, senior executives, now are evaluating, they're assessing their organization's ability to create software, whether that's themselves or in some combination with, and usually it is, with partners, with other online sources, whether it's apps, data, other services. And the real focus has come not just on IT, but the whole organization and its ability to create software. Because let's be straight about it. A lot of software is being built outside of IT. And why? Because they go to whatever environment with a credit card and have a cloud service and hire their developers and do whatever. Often, times they're going to come back to IT for security and data and integration and other things like that, or it's going to happen in IT. It's usually happening in all of the above. So organizations, businesses now are not just relying on, they have a huge critical strategic reliance, dependency on their organization's ability to deliver software. Now, what does this come back to DevOps? As I said in the beginning, DevOps is about how we create software. We oftentimes compare monolith versus cloud native and containers and microservices and service mesh and serverless, and those technologies and deployments or software architectures. All of those things will continue to evolve and change. And that is in part also what's enabled us to be able to create software faster, because we don't have to create an entire large monolith piece of software. We can make much smaller incremental changes. We can do tests in market, maybe even a subset of market. I remember when I went to the first AWS reInvent conference, the most insightful, where I kind of had the biggest aha, was a session where AWS or Amazon was talking about their own process for doing upgrades, and how they no longer did the sort of get it all ready, do all the upgrades, turn it on, okay, we're done, as opposed to let's bring up an equal amount of servers because we've got that much capacity. Let's upgrade, let's install there and roll parts of our service onto it and move that over in increments and roll back if we need to, or point back to the existing server because you've got that much capacity. You would never do that in your own data center, but you can do that in the cloud. And that's the way DevOps is. It's transformational in that way in how we create software. It's also transformational how organizations work together internally. We all have silos, even if it's on small teams. Sometimes it's the people who hoard information become their own silo, but organizationally, it's obviously a big challenge. and nothing new. We've faced that for a long time. But the collaborative nature, the cross-functional team nature of Agile and of DevOps help to break some of that down. Frankly, I think that's why Agile has been so popular. And now, of course, DevOps is bringing in security into shift left. It's bringing in operations and SRE. It's bringing in data ops, AI, things like that. It's really, and governance and compliance. I mean, everyone sees that there's a place for them in this that they can now participate in versus a serial process that it will land on my doorstep and then I shall stop it until I say it should go forward, which is the old way, which is why it takes so long to get software out the door. So let's talk about where we're going next. So I've told you this journey that we're all on. I've talked to you about what's changed in our environment in kind of a brief, quick way. But those are drivers that are not only present today, but they're going to continue to accelerate. The businesses need to be able to respond and react in either a defensive strategy, an offensive strategy, maybe, as I mentioned, to disrupt their own market, kind of jump into the next place they need to be. That's not going away. And the distributed workforce is not going away. We're not all going back to the office. I'm not saying we're all going to stay at home either. We're going to be in this mixed mode, what I call work anywhere. Doesn't matter whether I'm at Starbucks, I'm at home, I'm in the office, I'm on the airplane, I'm at the hotel, I'm at the conference, I'm at wherever. I can work anywhere I want and wherever I'm most productive. And oftentimes, more so now than before, that's going to be a personal choice, as well as kind of the work requirement of where you need to be. Mobile, of course, is a huge factor in this. Mobile is almost a click box on the checklist, the product checklist. Do we need mobile? Yes. I'd like fries with that. Yeah, give me mobile. I know it's not that easy to deploy. But we also have low-code, no-code platforms and environments. So this whole DevOps movement isn't just about cloud native. It isn't, a matter of fact, it can't be. It isn't being applied that way. Mainframe applications are part of this ecosystem. Because if you get into anything complex or anything that's been around for a while, you're not going to be able to develop a truly independent, standalone unicorn application that doesn't need anything from anybody else. That rarely happens. As I mentioned, you at least need security. Maybe you want single sign-on. You at least need data from other applications or to other applications. You at least need some integration. The customer experience, the transaction that we're performing, the process we're implementing or automating may not stay within one application. It happens across multiple environments, multiple applications. So when we think about DevOps, what's changing for us is we're going to continue to accelerate in our ability to get software out the door reliably and in a consistent way with quality is a fundamental requirement now and going forward. And our ability to do that at higher speeds is going to be important. That doesn't mean we're doing 100 deploys an hour or 10 deploys an hour. Again, that applies to a few people, but most people are not going to be able to handle that or need to. It's not a business requirement, at least not today. But the ability to, let's try this feature in a different part of our market. Let's do some testing in market. Let's try something and take it out if it's not working. If we're rolling out a new feature, feature flag kind of an approach. So our ability to experiment as opposed to let's take 2 years of investment to build the software or whatever, even a year, to create the software and build this big launch around it. Businesses are operating much more dynamically in an agile way. And so they expect their software to be delivered that way. And your ability, your role in this and helping create that capability is enabling not just the company in what it can do, it's enabling you in your career and where you can kind of take your skills next. Let's face it, we're all not going to work at the same company forever. Most of us work at a company for a year or two, move on to the next opportunity, a new place to kind of apply, but not only what we know, but learn some new things. It's a much more dynamic environment for the workforce. So we take those things with us, and you bring with that a competitive edge. If you have worked on helping the team, whether it's a small team you're on or the larger organization, with its ability to deliver software using DevOps, or even the next thing, whatever comes after DevOps, whatever that might be. The things that are really fundamentally to me change about DevOps in the future is we have to focus on multiple concurrent and interrelated workflow pipelines across different applications. I mean, think about it. If you were going to deliver a new food ordering app for restaurants, you may not have the same app everywhere. If you're an international company, even if you're in, the Midwest and New York and LA, those markets have differences, maybe in the products and also in the in what the offerings are and how you interact with your customers. It may be a very drive-up culture. It may be a very sit-down culture for getting food service from someone. There can be all kinds of differences. So there can be localization, specialization, things that we can now do in software. Feature flags, I mentioned, is a great way to do that. That doesn't happen in one app, not very often. So these interrelated workflow pipelines, I think, are crucial to our ability to deliver software. And DevOps will mature along with that process. The tools will mature with that. There's a heavy interest in value chain right now. And I don't know whether value chain is truly a market long-term or if it's sort of the next evolution of where the need is. To me, it is a very strong recognition of the business saying, I need to know if I put this amount of money into this part of the process to create software, I'm going to get something that's close to what I expected, or even better out the other end. And I want some visibility into that. It's not just engineering metrics to see how we're delivering and how efficient we are at something. Yeah, those kind of process improvements, continuous improvements are important to us. So the ability to handle multiple concurrent streams or pipelines of work, the ability to work across multiple environments, whether it's the cloud environment, whether it's serverless architecture versus a mainframe app, to kind of paint two extremes of the spectrum. It can be your own private enterprise cloud. It can be external partners and our API-driven software architectures that let us do many more things with our apps, and we aren't as closely tied to the UIs that we create to it. It can be reused across multiple places. I mentioned, of course, mobile. So the environments, low-code, no-code apps, all of those things need to be part of the process. So when you think about creating a tool chain, I think one of the things we have to think about now is software is no longer a static thing. It's not a solid, it's a fluid. It's dynamic, it's constantly changing, and what the business is going to ask or what we're going to want to do from a technology perspective is going to constantly, continually change all the time. So you can't put in a fixed solution for your tool chain and hope that it's going to last you for 3 years. It never will. I mean, it's going to change. It has to change. The business is going to ask us to do that. Something will come along. The next thing beyond serverless might come along, a different kind of container technology, whatever it might be. Those things are going to drive us. So as software architects, as software creators, as SRE staff, as security people, we need to think about how we build and create a dynamic environment for ourselves that, it'd be nice to say it's plug and play. It never really truly is that easy. But we have the ability to evolve and change it, and sometimes very quickly to take on new challenges. So I hope my talk today has helped kind of position where we need to take DevOps next and some of the trends that are happening. If you've picked up anything, I hope you've heard what I've said about the business and how it's changed, and now that's changed how we need to deliver software. We oftentimes think about it as the technology that's changed and is the enabler. It is. But the businesses are now thinking themselves as a technology company, not just an airline or a manufacturer. And I say technology because software is part of that, but it can be other things that go with that. So as you proceed on your journey, I hope that you have great success. And a great thing about the DevOps community is there's lots of sharing. People are very open about sharing not only their expertise, but their learnings and the journeys that they've been on. So I hope my sharing that with you has also been helpful. I'd like to invite you to stop by our virtual booth. You're also welcome to go to the Accelerated Strategies site, website, accelst.com. Excel STAT, ST, if you will, for the strategies. All of our content is free. So you're welcome to download reports on alternative cloud, on data security for Kubernetes, on remote work and how software has influenced that and where that's going in the future. We have some upcoming research coming out around testing and how that's changed in the nature of DevOps and how it's changed DevOps itself. So there's a lot of good things from us. You're also welcome to join me on some of the video programming that we have. I participate as part of Media Ops. I also work with the team there in another role, and I do a number of TV kind of video segments, from interviewing people from across the spectrum in our industry, and also an analyst corner segment as well. So there's a DevOps Unbound series, there's a CISO Talk, many things that I'm part of. So welcome to check that out. It's at techstrong.tv, and I hope you enjoy that. And again, thank you for coming today. I wish you the most success. Be safe, be well, and we'll be talking soon. Please reach out. Thank you.